Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the second day of EmTech Europe 2025. My name is Iliana Magra. I'm a journalist with Kathimerini, a Greek newspaper that is co-hosting the conference along with the MIT Technology Review. I thought personally that yesterday it was a very interesting day. We heard a lot about deepfakes. A lot of that freaked me out. We heard a lot about LLMs and all the different facets of AI and the way that it can influence our lives, our healthcare, education, and the geopolitics of AI. So today we have a lot more to discuss, and I would like to call to the stage Milagros Pérez Diez, who is the content director of events at MIT TechReview, who will present our next speaker.
Kalimera se olus. Good morning. How are you today? Welcome to the second day of EmTech Europe. It's great to have you here with us today. I'm here to present the first keynote of the morning. Our speaker is an innovator, a scientist, and an entrepreneur. She has founded Apheros and co-created its metal foam technology while she was earning her material science PhD at ETH Zurich. Julia is working to tackle the most pressing challenges in the high computing and AI sector, that is the skyrocketing energy consumption in the data centers. And this is not just about being more efficient, it's also about being more sustainable. So I'm going to invite Julia to join us and tell us more about her work, and then we're going to have a conversation.
Thank you so much, Mila. Hello, everyone. So, hello everyone. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy you all made it through traffic and any kind of other events that we're having. First of all, a question. Who here has ever visited a data center? One person, two person, three, four. So we have a couple of people here. But for the most of you, what you might not know, if you look at this room that you might recognize as a data center, that room, in comparison to the entire center, is about as big as your phone in comparison to your laptop. Most of the data center is involved with the facilities around it, and a big part of that is cooling. So data center cooling is actually a very intensive process because data centers take energy, they do some compute, but all of that energy gets turned into heat and has to be led away. Currently, we're using 1% of global energy just to cool our data centers. Numbers are predicting that in less than 5 years, we'll be using 5% of total global energy. And this doesn't involve all the energy that we're using to compute. This is just the energy we're using for cooling. We at Apheros, and I'm sure you too, we want this to never happen. We think this number is unacceptable. So how do we do this? We transition in technology. We move away from what is called air cooling to what is liquid cooling. And we do this for a couple of different reasons. One, the newest chip by NVIDIA and the new manufacturers, they can actually only be cooled with liquid cooling if they're supposed to perform for AI computing. They also, with a liquid-cooled system, use significantly less energy for cooling. And what is very convenient as an entrepreneur, there's a lot of money being spent in this space. So, let's start with the first aspect. Why is data center liquid cooling so important for newer chips? First of all, they're using way more power that they're turning into heat. So they've gone from something like 200 watts to what is predicted by the end of the year to be 1,000 watts. So that's a 5-fold increase, and we need to be able to compensate for that. Additionally, these newer chips have become way more delicate. We used to put more transistors on a chip, but now we're also stacking them, and there's different layers involved in how we make these chips. So now they can't run hot anymore. They can't run at 100 degrees. They have to run at 60 degrees or below. So suddenly our window for cooling has shrunk a lot. And then finally, there's the sustainability aspect. We want to use higher temperatures for cooling. If you cool at 20 degrees, and outside, as it is often here in Athens, it's hotter than 20 degrees, you have to compensate for that by putting in more energy. If you can cool at something like 32 degrees, most days of the year you're fine. You can use the outside air to cool your system, and you don't have to invest into extra energy. So let's look at the system kind of in a very general way. What you have in a data center is different cooling systems that interconnect. You have, I can see it over here, so you have these kind of racks for servers, where servers are really shelved, like you would put books in a bookshelf. And then you have different loops of cooling that go through the racks, that go into a chiller, and then finally into these big cooling towers that are usually placed on top of the data center roof, so you can actually cool your system. And when we talk about different cooling aspects, we usually talk about this first system, what is happening in the racks. And that, by default, currently in data centers, is air. Then we have the second and the third loop, sometimes it's two, but those are already liquid. I'm not going to talk about water consumption in data centers, but for those of you that have already heard that this is an issue, that is because these additional loops exist. Now, when we move to liquid cooling, we have way more efficient cooling in the rack, and the rest of the cooling facility starts using less and less energy. So there's different ways of doing this. This can happen on the chip, but a very fun way of cooling data centers that is coming up at the moment is actually really taking your servers and putting them in what is essentially a bathtub. So you take the whole server and you put it into a liquid, and you cool it in that way. So there's different approaches to making cooling more efficient, but they all save energy. So how does this work? When you do liquid cooling, you save energy on the chip. So you need 15% less energy, and there's some trickling down effect. Your chip will run better, it will be more performant. So overall, you just have a performance increase of about 20% on the chip. But I've been talking about a much greater energy saving amount, right? I've been talking about over 80%. And this is because of what happens at the facility level when you have liquid cooling on the chip. At the facility level, what you can do is you can reduce the entire energy by 85%. And this is energy savings that are useful in many different ways. For one, when you're using energy, you're spending money, right? Electricity costs. And a mid-sized data center can easily spend $2 million a year just to buy energy to cool its servers. So when you can reduce that cost down to something like 300,000, you've done a very good thing for your business case. Additionally, all of that energy has to be produced. If you're using solar, there's not that big of an issue in the sustainability realm. But if you're using any kind of energy that comes from fossil fuels, you're producing CO2. So reducing your energy can also massively reduce your CO2 footprint. So that is one of the major benefits. There's also a trickle-down benefit. If you're more efficient, you can build smaller. And anything that's smaller uses less energy in general. So this is why liquid cooling has become the default in any kind of high-performance computing, which is like the supercomputers that do the cool simulations that we use in science, but also for any kind of AI computing that we are using more and more, as we heard yesterday in all of those talks about software. So where do we come in? We don't come in as a company on the facility level. We come in on the servers on the chip. So in a very rudimentary way, this is what it looks like on a server. You have your chip, and on top of that, you put a metal device, a copper device, that spreads the heat out, and that then can transfer the heat away. This is called a finned heatsink, if you're working with air, or a microchannel device, if you close it up and flow liquid through. The effect is exactly the same. So a cold liquid goes in, it takes the heat, and it flows it out as a hot liquid. So we at Apheros, we've looked at this system, a system that hasn't been really changed in close to 100 years, because cooling has been an issue for a long, long time. And we decided we want to change this. So how do we do this? We move away from this purely fin structure, and we add a foam. So maybe this is one of the only audiences that might understand where the name of our company comes from, with Apheros. I took a bit too much ancient Greek at school, so I was influenced by Apheros. to really choose the name of the company. So thank you for having an audience that understands me here. So this is what the structure looks like. You can do this with air, but what we're really focused on is working with these enclosed systems where heat can flow through the foam and cool. They're called cold plates for anybody who's heard this term before, but that is basically what they do. So Apheros foams are really like a sponge. They suck up liquid, which you can see there is a real-time video of how quickly it absorbs water. So this absorption effect is called wicking, but this is really what helps transport the fluid through the system. You have this kind of open pores where the liquid can go through, and together they enhance heat transfer. So we have a system that looked like this, and now we're moving on to a system that looks like this. So really changing up the structure to enhance this surface transfer of systems. So I showed you a little video before of how that might look in immersion cooling now that we have these tanks where the servers go in. We are working on a project in immersion cooling, and I brought you a little video to show you how that might look. So here you see the servers. They always come with some kind of heat dispersion system, and this can be replaced really quite easily with an Apheros foam. Here we go. And you can really see this foamy structure that enhances the surface and really optimizes flow transportation. So far, I've been showing you these kind of single-phase cooling systems. So single-phase, for the electrical engineers or anyone else in the audience, single phase is just when nothing evaporates. You have a water, it comes out water. You have an oil, it comes out oil. It just stays as the way it is. You can also use the evaporation effect to cool systems, right? When something evaporates, it cools down. That's why we like to sweat as human beings, right? Because we can cool ourselves down through this effect. And this same process can also be used when you're doing data center cooling. So instead of having that system that I showed you with the little kind of fins on the chip, you can make a system that helps evaporation. So this is also something that we're actively working on. So really building something where you can vaporize liquids quickly. You can use that very physical effect of the evaporation to help cooling, and you can really increase that. It's quite a challenging technology, I'm going to say, because we need to work at 60 degrees. Evaporation, we all know, for water, it's easy when you get to 100 degrees, but if you're working at 60 degrees, you get a lot more challenges with which liquid should we be using. So this is something that we're working on quite actively, and we're using our foams to really enhance this process. So finally, I wanted to say really thank you to my team. So this is who we are. We're currently at ETH Zurich building our team there and having a lot of fun while we're developing this technology. We're at an early stage startup for those of you who have been listening also yesterday to the different startup founders. So we're a year and a half in. So what we're doing here when you're doing really deep tech development in a startup is prototype testing. In the end. So we work with different partners together to develop different designs for what I said, cold plates, for different evaporation testers, for heat exchangers, if we're feeling very fancy. And we're manufacturing these designs and then testing them with the companies in their own systems. So just as a quick overview of what we do at Apheros, if you have any questions, if you want to follow us, check out our website. Thank you so much for your attention, and I think Mila has some questions for me, so let's go ahead.
I do. Let's sit down. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Let's have a seat. Julia, thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
It's very interesting and motivating and inspiring to see you work on this. So let's start from the beginning. So this started as a research project. Why did you choose this topic, and why did you start working on it? Like, what inspired you to start research?
Interesting question. So before I go into it, quick question. Who here has done a PhD or is even thinking about doing a PhD? I know some people already. Yes, yes. So you know the pain. During my PhD, I tried many different things. But what I always came back to, the one thing that I was very good at is making foams. So first I worked on insulation foams, but then I moved into metallic foams. So when I was working on them, I really realized that this is not just something that is a scientific project, something that stays in academia and kind of, putters about. I realized this is something that has real-world applications, but that it can also be made at scale, so we can really make it full-on systems. And so I decided out of that it was important that this material and this device could come out of the university space and into the real world. I also saw a lot of startup people around me, and I was like, I want to do that too. So there was a bit of a mix of being very lucky and motivated.
That was my next question. So when did you decide that it was time to take it to the market, to leave the laboratory and start?
So that was year 4 of my PhD. So that was quite a while in when I'd really knew the technology. So I was not, some people know they want to do a startup from the get-go, so they really know from the start and they look for a technology or a problem to solve. For me, it was the other way around. I always liked startups, but I would have been just as happy just joining one and working there. And then when I saw that I had a technology here in-house that I could actually bring out and bring to the market, I started that about, 8 to 10 months before I finished my PhD and started applying for grant money, because you need to continue with your life, and that's how it went.
And do you think that Apheros could have existed 10, 20 years ago, or do you think that there are new technologies that have helped you develop this technology now?
So that's a very good question. So the research I did in my PhD built on a lot of research that happened before in the group, right? Very little comes from nowhere. A lot of it is built on something that already exists. So in that sense, not necessarily. I think in general, when you're working with metal foams in the liquid cooling space, I think this is exactly the time you want to be working in. And so in that way, I do think it's the perfect moment.
Right. I'm sure we all know that many startups struggle to go and to do that transition from a project, research into the market. How has been your experience, and what advice do you have for those who start thinking about making it commercializing something?
So I think we're in a good time. So as we heard yesterday also a lot about what's happening in Greece. So in Switzerland and in Zurich, there's a really strong ecosystem from the university space, but also outside of it, really helping startups grow, teaching them how to develop a business case, and then also funding for early stage. So having this kind of systematic help really helps in the beginning. So I do think there's this kind of back and forth. What is also excellent about the startup space is everybody helps each other. So once you're a startupper or even an aspiring startupper, you reach out to other people, and even people who've been in the space for 20 years, they will get back to you, answer you on LinkedIn, help you out, point you in the right direction. So it's a very strong community, and that has always been a really strong backbone and a strong support structure to get you going.
And I'm sure that you see entrepreneurs who have gone a longer way, and you see people that are starting, so you are the bridge also there in between. Yes. That's great. And also, you have recently raised 1.8 million for Apheros. Mm-hmm. That's congratulations on that.
Thank you so much.
So tell us what it means for Apheros and what is going to happen in what are we going to see in the next few years? So
development takes time, and when you need to take your time, you need money. So this is a very, very simple balance. Every startup, especially in the deep tech space, there we go, has experienced this. What has been a very strong blessing for us that there are now a lot of people that understand this, that understand it takes 5, 10, 15 years sometimes to bring a technology out of academia and into the market. And so raising money allows you to work on your technology, it allows you to grow your team and really have this kind of diverse and collaborative energy that is what you need to build a product that really performs at the highest level.
All right, we have some questions from the audience. I invite you all to scan the code and ask us whatever you want to know from Julia. So I have a question from Charlotte. She wants to know, where is growth going to come from for your business?
So growth comes from, in the end, having partners that are attracted by your technology. In early stages, this is in the co-development and the design space. In later stages, it's customers. So this is really how you build growth, is you really go out, you talk to people, you learn about their issues and their specific problems, and you build products that make them happy and that they can afford.
Is that a good answer for you, Charlotte? Great. All right, I'm assuming you're the only Charlotte in the room, so. Okay, I have another question from Iraklis. This is really interesting. It says, will Apheros have a future in retail, being able to use this technology in a personal computer at home?
Oh, gaming computer.
Interesting.
So currently that is not our focus. To work towards gaming computers. There's a lot of surrounding aspects that you need to build a full systems that we're currently not looking into. We're really looking into this one aspect of the cold plate. I'm not saying no. So there might be a time when you can find an Apheros liquid cooling system to install in your gaming computer, but it's not going to be in the next year or two.
But maybe you can apply it to other areas, other industries.
So you can apply it to quite a bit of industries. Most of them are what we call B2B, so business to business. So this is filtration, for instance, is a big one that we're looking into. There's aspects in the chemical industry, in catalysis. There's aspects in electrolysis, so hydrogen production. So there's many different applications for these high surface area metal foams. Currently, we're really focused on the cooling solutions and the providers of these kind of solutions.
All right, we have another one. That is, how many years do you think it will take this technology to be implemented in the market?
So first, early stage implementation, we believe will happen in about 1 to 2 years. Full implementation across scale can easily take another 5 to 10. So this is always the early adopter stage where you get some companies that invest, where you can get, tens to hundreds of thousands of pieces already working, but full implementations, you're in the millions of pieces, and that takes time not only on the market, but also if you need to, we're actually physically making something. We can't just add another server for a SaaS solution. So we have to physically produce these parts, and that will extend the timeline a bit.
All right, so I think we have one more question. Where will we see Julia in the next 5 years? Not Apheros, Julia. Oh,
probably back on stage somewhere talking, hopefully in front of some very wealthy donors, because in 5 years we're doing Series B. So this is really what we have to do. So we're going to be around. We're going to be around showing our technology and really raising capital so we can do the full deployment that we talked about and really manufacture at scale.
All right. So I think that's all.
Thank you so much, Mila.
Thank you, Julia.
Thank you, everyone.